Welcome. This is Debra and Clement, and thank you for joining me for this week's episode of Shortcut to the Soul. So I just want to start by saying that, I have not released a podcast in some months, and the reason is I've actually moved over to YouTube. So if you weren't aware of it, you can find me on YouTube. My channel is Debra and Clement, and I've been doing some videos there. I'm doing weekly forecasts. So just check that out, and that's probably where I'm going to be, quite frankly, putting most of my material for the foreseeable future. Of course, I always invite you to sign up for my newsletter at debraclementastrologer.com. That will keep you up to date on where I am, what I'm doing, the events I've been having, and things of that nature. So for today, I want to talk about Jupiter retrograde. And Jupiter stationed retrograde back on May 14th. So, a little bit late here, but still relevant because Jupiter will be retrograde in Capricorn until September 12th. So just to be clear, May 14th, transiting Jupiter stationed retrograde, 27 degrees, 14 minutes of Capricorn, and it's going to backpedal through the zodiac until it finally stops, stations direct on September 12th, and that'll be at 17 degrees and 24 minutes of Capricorn. All right, so what does that mean, right? What does this retrograde cycle mean for, all of us in general, and of course for you in particular? So retrograde cycles, we say, are about reflection. It's a time when the energy is turned inward, right? And that's how we use it. That's how it's best used. For me, Jupiter retrograde, it's that 4-month period where we're being asked by, let's say, the universe. It's sort of seeking our own inner truth. Now, Jupiter is the great of fortune, right? And it represents, success, prosperity. It also rules religion, knowledge, and we say growth and expansion. So let's start with the success and prosperity. While Jupiter is retrograde, this cycle, it encourages us. I'll say that it encourages us to reevaluate. Number one, how do we define success? Right? And I can also say how we define success as well as, of course, how we define prosperity. All right. And do we define them, solely as by the way, how did we learn? Do we define it as we were taught by our family, right? By society, maybe some friends, maybe colleagues. Do we define it differently? Do we define them, really on our own terms? Because we can certainly be influenced by other people, and that's fine. But the question is, do we really believe it? Because Jupiter, as the ruler of the 9th house, it is about our belief systems, all right? And that includes religion. It also includes philosophy, right? Of philosophical beliefs, our political beliefs. So this cycle also encourages us, to reconsider our beliefs. And if we're talking, for example, whether it's religion, for example, or politics, you look at it and we might discover maybe we're not really that aligned anymore with a belief system. Well, if that turns out to be the case, that, we're really not all into it, it is time to release it. But it's certainly a time to consider what we do believe in. And if we are lacking in some area, maybe we need a belief system. We need a little bit more, faith in our lives. This is a time, again, that reflection, anything with the RE, to look into, research it. We might think of that more from Mercury, but it is about exploring. And remember, Jupiter is about expansion and it's higher knowledge. So it's a great time to expand our knowledge by, again, looking into different things, considering, reconsidering. Now, the higher knowledge, I want to go back to that. So while Jupiter is retrograde, it supports seeking information. It supports asking questions, really. I won't say question everything. That's certainly Uranus, right? But Jupiter certainly encourages us to ask questions that can lead us to meaningful information or maybe a new ideology, but something that will resonate with our own personal truth. Now, while Jupiter is retrograde, it also asks us, as we are looking within, to really reflect upon, is there any areas in our life where we tend to be excessive, wasteful, arrogant, fanatical, or hypocritical, right? Are we the do as I say, not as I do, or hey, it's perfect for you, but it's not good enough for me? And when we talk about the excessive as well, or the wasteful, Jupiter retrograde is a great energy to really sit and reflect and say, do I need to trim anything from my life? I say trim the fat from our lives. And when I say trim the fat, it could be a lot of different things. It could be literally, have to do with things in your home, clutter, emptying things out. It could be relationships. All right. It could be people, could be ideas, but where anything that needs to go, that is sort of taking up space, taking up room, but is not resonating with us and our inner truth, it's time to let it go. Now, when we use them well, okay, any Jupiter retrograde cycle can be a really productive time for determining, again, our own inner truth. And whatever we discover during this time, it's going to be very, very helpful. It may be the key, actually, but it's certainly going to be helpful to us in terms of expanding and growing when Jupiter goes direct. Because while it's retrograde, it is more about the work in progress, where we're examining, we're looking in, we're reflecting, and perhaps looking for, again, things we might be letting things go, and we're going to be looking for beliefs, for example, or ideals that we're going to replace them with. But when it actually goes direct is when we move forward, and it's a little bit easier to put these, let's say, this new philosophy, these new ideas, this new attitude or belief towards success. All right, and success is a big one, success and prosperity, because that is a mindset, right? It's a mindset. And so that might be something serious to look at and say, what is your view on prosperity, and success? And especially look in today's times right now with everything going on, certainly a time of uncertainty, right, is a huge understatement. So it's a good time to examine what is your attitude towards prosperity and towards success. Now, that's a general sense. So what does it mean, right? What does it mean for you? Let's get a little bit personal here. So whatever house in your horoscope, okay, the house in your horoscope where Jupiter is backpedaling, well, that is going to describe the specific life areas that you are being encouraged to reevaluate. It's where you should be reflecting. And why, again, to get clear on them, on that connection to your own, I'm going to say, inner truth. And why? Because when it goes direct, you can put it into practice. Now, what you might find is that in some area of your life, you need to grow, you need to expand. Could go the other way. It might be that you need to trim some fat or cut back in some way, tone it down a little bit. So let us talk about the different signs and what it means for you. So I will start with Aries and say, if you are born under Aries or with Aries rising, well, Jupiter is retrograding in your 10th house. Now that's the house of its career, right? It's status, and we say it's honors or fame, but it's actually, when we say status, your reputation, it's your professional status, but I do want to make a point of this. It is also your personal status. So while Jupiter is, moving reverse motion in your 10th house, this is a time to really reconsider how you evaluate. Absolutely, of course, I'm going to say success. How important is it to you or not of maybe being in the public eye or being recognized? Okay. And also anything that is connected to status. Now, of course, there's a professional status and personal status. Listen, that could be am I single? Am I married? Do I own a home? Am I a tenant? Just things of that nature. Am I, and of course, am I employed? Am I working? But things of different status. Am I a parent? So you get the idea. And while Jupiter is going through this house, this is where a specific focus is for you. And it might be looking at your career and the work that you're doing and thinking, does it ring true for me? Do I love what I do, or am I going through the motions? Okay. If you are born under Taurus, well, no, this is, hold on. I was going to say this is wrong for a second. I'm just thinking for a moment now. So if you're born under Taurus, sorry about that. Jupiter is actually transiting right through your 9th house. Okay, it's the 9th house. And that is the house of travel. It's the house of higher knowledge, higher education, legal matters, right? Legal matters. And we say publishing, but it also does take in media as well. And the foreign travel, foreign culture as well. So here is Jupiter moving through what is the natural zodiac would be its own house. So what is the reflection here? Well, 9th house is also religion, right? Religion. That's what I forgot. Philosophy, your beliefs. So even though everyone is asked to do this while Jupiter is retrograde, for you Taurus or Taurus rising, there's a little bit more of an emphasis of really looking at your belief systems on every level and seeing what resonates with you, what doesn't. And, when I talk about that, and for example, it may resonate with you. You may say, listen, I'm really clear on my belief systems. I don't have to look at that. And that's fine. But what about your friends? What about your colleagues? What about your family? Because do you share the same beliefs? And then again, how important is it to you that, let's say, your little collective, so to speak, are all on the same page? And how tolerant are you? Because, hey, ninth house, Jupiter, also very much connected to tolerance. So something to consider. And legal matters, I'm going to sort of put that under justice for a moment and just say it may be a time for you to reflect on justice, fairness, things, and I'm going to say do things of that nature. As far as knowledge in general, how important is knowledge to you and how do you define it? Do you look at knowledge, you have to have a degree, you've got to have a certificate, or do you actually have some disdain for that and say, hey, anybody can get a degree and, get straight C's and just get it. It's really hands-on experience. It's learning, on your own. So it's time to look at things like that. If you are born under Gemini or with a Gemini rising, well, Jupiter is actually retrograding in your 8th house of its intimacy, right? Intimacy and trust. And we say other people support, which is their money and also their backing. And it's your shared assets with other people. So what is Jupiter asking you to get, I'm going to say, to reflect on? I want to go to the trust for a moment, the trust and the intimacy, because really the trust. And it's a time to reflect on that, not for yourself, how trustworthy are you, but again, what is the value in your life? And look at your social circle, so to speak. Who is there for you? And are you there for other people? Because, if they're not there for you, you may have to, right, make some decisions. And if you're not there for other people, well, maybe there could be a good reason why you're not there for a person or two, but it may be a time for you to reflect on that and say, because what we give out, right, we get back. Again, also, I'm going to say intimacy. It may be a time for some of you to say, I haven't been in a relationship for a long time, and maybe it seems more important now. All right, so that's something to reflect on. And again, to define what is an intimate relationship to you, because it's not the same really for everyone. So in terms of shared resources, listen, just across the board, I will say Jupiter going through the 8th house. If we're talking about shared resources, same thing if we're talking about taxes, right? Just because that's in the 8th house as well. I would just say by all means, Jupiter is associated with legal matters. It might be time to see if if all your papers are in order, all your affairs are in order in terms of anything to do with estate planning, okay? And that whatever the shared finances are, that exactly what is going on, okay? If you're sharing them with another, then there's some, full disclosure going on there. If you are born under Cancer or with Cancer rising, well, Jupiter is retrograding in your 7th house, right? We say it's marriage. It's your one-to-one relationships. It's your committed partnerships, and it includes your best friends. And in fairness, I've always said this, we talk about family in the 4th house and we talk about siblings in the 3rd house, but those can be one-to-one relationships as well. It's any relationship, like I say, that you really are invested in. And that can include an adversary, because if you're really competing with somebody, like that person's on your radar, right? Can take up, a lot of your attention. So Jupiter going backpedaling through your 7th house, absolutely a time to look at all of these relationships. And not just the what do I need in the relationship, but if we're looking at Jupiter in terms of, I want to say growth, for example, right? Growth and expansion. For some of you, it might be something where, hey, I need to grow, I need to get out, I need to socialize more, I need new friends. But for some of you within a relationship or your friends, has it become stagnant? Is it time that maybe, you need to help it blossom a little bit more in some way, make some memories, get out, when you're able to get out. The other thing about Jupiter, I want to say, being retrograde in the 7th house, Jupiter is associated with success, right? So what is a successful relationship to you, right? What is it really? Because it's not the same for everyone. We don't always take time and really think about it. I mean, I can't say, that's something I was always thinking about. But during this period, look at your relationships and just see which ones would you consider successful. And if they're not, there's time to reflect, and you may have to let go if you need to trim fat, if they are detrimental to you, or it may be a point of reaching out. Again, nurturing them in some way, helping them grow, helping them blossom. In terms of adversaries and competitors, I would just say if that's something in your life, it's a time while Jupiter is retrograde to look and say, am I paying, because think about excess for a moment. Am I paying too much attention? Am I so busy looking at them that I'm really not paying attention to me and just going out and doing what I need to do? So that's, something to absolutely consider. And seventh house is also associated, certainly, right, with fairness. It's natural zodiac, it's Libra's house. It's about balance, right? And so at this time, it might be a time just to look over your life in general and see where's the balance, and especially, of course, with relationships, but are they balanced? And yes, it may not be 50-50, but is it 80-20? Is it swinging, up and down like crazy? So it may be time to look at that. If you are born under Leo, well, Jupiter is transiting, or Leo rising. Okay, Jupiter is the transit retrograde in your 6th house. Work, health, right? Work and health. Also pets, nutrition. So if Jupiter is backpedaling there, I think it's a reflection, obviously, look, your physical health. And that's sort of the big theme right now anyway, right? In the world, certainly, right, with COVID-19, but our health, our diet, our immune system. So while it's something I'm sure everyone's looking at, I'm going to say if you are born under Leo, Jupiter is saying, hey, this is a really great time. You may get some extra insight by looking at it now. And it is a time when we are, I'm just going to say, reflecting on the excess part of it. Look at your diet. Is there too much sugar? Is there too much gluten? Is there too much whatever, whatever the case may be? And your overall health, and looking at the physical side, I'm going to say, an exercise program. Jupiter in the 6th house, sometimes, we're a little bit lazy. Are we too lazy? Do we do too much? Is it too excessive? Are you constantly working out? Maybe you got to give the muscles, a rest, right? And in terms of work, again, work and service. How do you feel? Does the work that you do, does it make you feel good? Do you enjoy it? Do you get a sense of accomplishment or making a difference from it? And does that matter to you? Because, maybe, look, I do my work and I get paid and that's what I need. But whatever it is, reflect on it and see, is the work meeting your needs? Okay. If it is an issue where you are thinking, I need another job. Okay. I will say, while Jupiter is retrograding, by all means, think back to anyone that you have worked for, any prior jobs, any prior people you have worked with. All right. Not, it could be bosses, but even just colleagues, co-employees, and consider that, and consider just maybe reaching out to them. So I do want to say that can be very helpful at this time, certainly as well. And if you need new skills, Jupiter is connected to knowledge and education. It might be a time of looking within and saying, you know what, I'm not sure what's going on. Do I need to learn something new? All right, so that's something, Leo. Virgo, if you are born under Virgo or with Virgo rising, well, Jupiter is retrograding in your 5th house. Now, the 5th house is fun, right? It's romance, it's children, it's creativity. And so, pretty much everything that comes out of the 5th house, I have to say, is pretty good. It is a house of speculation. So I'm actually going to just start there and say, Jupiter on the excessive side. It's a time of reflection to say, have you put too much attention maybe, on romance and maybe not enough on, let's say, on work, for example, okay, on partying, on socializing, on gambling. Just look at those things. Now, the other side of it, though, of course, if we're talking about our beliefs, our philosophies. So 5th house is also about what is fun to us and what are we passionate about. And so it may be a time to just look at the big picture and think, what in life are you passionate about? What do you get excited about? And hey, children, right? Children are in the 5th house. And so for some of you, I'm just going to say, with Jupiter retrograding in the 5th house, could be some issues with the children now. I'm not talking about anything serious, but they may be requiring more attention from you, okay? Which Again, think of Jupiter, education, kids, right? What's going on with college, what's going on with school in general. So that might be a focus for some of you, and you might be exploring that in terms of the education of, hey, kind of like what's up, and really nobody knows yet, right? But on another side, it might be about children in general. If you haven't had children yet, do you want children? Do you not want children? How important is that to you? And the creative side of the fifth house. So Jupiter retrograding in the fifth house can actually revive something. If there was something you did years ago, I don't know, music, art, whatever, maybe it could be something physical, if it was a sport, but some type of an activity that you are passionate about, maybe a time to think back and maybe bring it back into your life. All right. And if you don't have any interests that you can really think of, it might be time to reflect on bringing something in that maybe it's, it could be something social, or it could just be something that I'm just going to say is satisfying for you. So Jupiter rules publishing, maybe this is the time you're going to say, listen, I've got extra time. I'm going to sit and write. And maybe it's because you're trying to write a novel. Maybe you're just writing fan fiction, for one of your favorite shows. And it's just, a great, it's just a fun thing to do. If you are born under, okay, moving on. If you're born under Libra, or with Libra rising, well, Jupiter is retrograding in your fourth house. Now that's your home, right? It's family. And besides home, it's real estate, because it's just, I always say this, it's not just your home. It could be a tenant. It could also be your office building where you are working, right? So Jupiter retrograding in the fourth house, if we're talking about values, well, number one, of course, I would say, we could look at family values. And by family values, not just the current ones, but traditions, things that have been passed down. Could be a little bit of a nostalgic time, actually, in some ways. And it may just be a time that you're going to go through photographs and get things in order in the home. You might be looking at changing your home in some way. Now, when I say changing the home, it could be, if we're looking at excess, it could be that you're thinking, hey, you know what? I need to downsize. This home is too big for me, or I need to finally get all the crap out of the garage or the basement or whatever the case may be, right? So it is a good time, if Jupiter is going retrograde in your fourth house, to look at anything that connects to clutter, waste, excess that you do not need. Recycle it, donate it, sell it, give it away, whatever. It could also be now connected to parents. It's usually really the mom. 10th house, we say, is a dad. It doesn't always work that way. But whenever a parental house is involved, and Jupiter is, any planet's retrograde there, but here I'm just going to say Jupiter, it's possible that you could be reflecting some way, what are my parents, right? What's a parent's need? Do they need a helping hand? I'm not saying you're going to invite them to live with you, but it could be, well, Jupiter is retrograde. Somebody could be coming back to the nest. Now, maybe not a parent, but let's say a child, okay? If the kids were away and they're home, and you may just be wondering, I'm going to say how long they're going to be here, but you might be making changes because of that and say, look, you know what? Let's say college is going to be online just for the heck of it. How are we going to set this up? Right? How are they going to set them up? Have their privacy, have whatever. So that might be something going on that you could be reflecting on. And in terms of, I'm going to go back to the inner truth here for a moment, is what makes you feel like, what makes it a home for you, right? How do you define home? How do you define, and I do want to say like family at this point, in terms of what resonates with you? In terms of working, and I just want to mention this because a lot of people who never worked at home are working at home. So while Jupiter is retrograde, you might be going back to the office. You might not be going back to the office. And so while it's retrograde now, this is a time of reflection in case you have a choice. What really resonates with you? Would you rather be home, okay, sleep late or whatever, and you can deal with the family? Or, maybe when it gets down to it, as much as you love your home, you don't want to work there. You want to get back out to the office, which is also fourth house. Okay, so just to be clear about that. And if you are born under Scorpio, or if you're born with Scorpio rising, well, hey, Jupiter is retrograding in your third house. So side-by-side relationships, your neighbors, your siblings, your cousins, right? Transportation, short trips, it's a house of communication. With Jupiter retrograding through that third house, if we are looking at, I just want to say the overall reflection, I'm actually going to mention something connected to excess, because with communications, it could be a time, depending on your experience, when it might be to reflect on when I say how important is communication to you. Of course, it's important, but what type of communication? Do you feel, just consider, do you share too much? Do you overshare? Do you need more social interaction? Do you need to chat with people more? You're sick of texting, or maybe you need more texting. But in terms of communication and interaction, what makes you feel, but I would say what makes you feel good, okay? Third house, in terms of, I want to say siblings, if it applies to you, might be some issue going on, could be some news connected to a sibling in some way. That could be, and it could be good news. Doesn't mean it's going to be bad news, okay? But there could be something going on along there. You could find yourself at this time reflecting on the relationships. If there's been a difficult or challenging relationship over the years, or maybe you're separated by distance, this might be a time to really consider, again, the value or the of the relationship, but also I want to say the inner, when we talk about the inner truth, when it really gets down to it, okay, how important is the relationship to you? And it's not to say you don't love your sibling, but for some people, it's just much more important. It's like my sister or my brother, and we get together all the time. And for some of them, it's like, yeah, it's my sister, it's my brother. I grew up with them, and, they live their own life and I live my own life. And that's really, and that's fine. And that is good enough for me. The other thing, if we're talking about third house as well, and I do want to talk about knowledge, because third house is associated with knowledge. Now, ninth house we say is higher knowledge. Third house is still education. It's teaching. It's still associated there. So if Jupiter is going retrograde through the third house, that might be something during these months that you are certainly revisiting, reflecting, reevaluating. Okay, and again, do you need on your own to take some type of a course, to do something, to learn something? It might be connected to your family. Third house, we would tend to say younger children. But what resonates with you? Does it feel right to say, hey, you know what? I think I'm going to homeschool. Okay, I'm not talking about distance learning now here, but I'm talking about homeschool, right? I'm just going to do the homeschooling. Or again, if there's the opportunity, and we have no idea what's going to happen, but let's say you have the opportunity, your child can go to school, or your child can, stay home. Maybe there's going to be some split, they're talking about all kinds of things here in New York. So, split sessions, or some kids will go and some kids won't. Something to think about. Again, does that resonate with you? What rings true for you in terms of, let's say, what the school experience would be? I'm just going to say, in this case, for your child. And if you are born under Sagittarius, I have to think on this a second. I'm sorry. Jupiter. Well, of course, Jupiter is retrograding in your second house of money, of income, right? It's values, it's self-worth. And with the self-worth, I'm going to go to success for a moment, success, prosperity, because it is the second house also connected to money. And again, how do you define it? How do you define it? And does that prosperity or income, is that what makes you feel successful? Is that what gives you your self-worth? Second house values, personal values, who and what is important to you. Again, what resonates with your inner truth. I mean, maybe, money is really super important to you. And on the other hand, it may just be kind of an easy come, easy go. You would rather do some other type of work and make less and be happy where you are. So it is a time to look at those type of values, though it is any type of value across the board. However, when we talk about the second house, we do talk money, right? Money, our assets, our savings accounts. So with it retrograding, I'm going to say this: Jupiter in the second house, in and of itself, as it's transiting, it could bring in money. It could also, you could see money going out. So for you, I'm just going to say, I feel it's a really important time to reflect on how much goes out, how much comes in terms of the waste and the excess. Are you spending, a little bit too much? Or quite frankly, are you spending too little? I mean, are you tighter, quite frankly, than you have to be? So Jupiter's, for Sagittarius or Sagittarius rising, the focus on the reflection or the reevaluating. Money, certainly income is a big part of it. And it might be something where if you're working for someone and maybe now you're not, how do I earn my money? What is my inner truth? Is what resonates with me? Does what resonates with me, trying to just, put out the resume and whenever some openings happen, get a job. Or, hey, you know what? I've always wanted to have my own business. I think I'm going to start it now. Okay. It's what is, right? What is success? So Capricorn, if you are born under Capricorn or with Capricorn rising, well, Jupiter is retrograding in your first house. Now, the first house, it's the house, well, I'm going to say your personal affairs. It's all about you. It is your approach to life. Yes, it's your physical appearance. So in terms of the physical appearance or the physical body, okay, I'm going to put it that way. Anytime a planet is retrograding there, it is important to review health. It's a time when we can reconsider, reevaluate our physical health, our physical body, including how we feel about it, our body image. All right. The others, and this sense, I'm just going to say with Jupiter, if we're looking at like the inner truth, whatever it is, I grew up with the, and well, still doing it today, right? Skinny, 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 or whatever it was. And you might be in a position, some of you, where maybe for years you've been dieting or you've been exercising. And it's like, really, the truth is, you know what? I don't care if I'm 10 pounds overweight. It's just time to to evaluate what really matters to you. I'm just going to say in terms of appearance. And the other side of it, though, the approach to life, because Jupiter is optimistic, right? Jupiter is optimistic. And so here's Jupiter retrograding in your first house. And it's time to really look at your attitude. Do you see that glass, half full? Do you see that glass half empty? And do you go, I don't want to say in extremes, but is it excessively so either way? All right. Are you excessively, nope, I'm like Eeyore, glad you noticed me, not going to work out. So first house also, do want to mention if it's very often relationships. When we have a planet in our transiting, whether it's direct or retrograde in the first house, relationship issues come up as well. So I am going to say, born under Capricorn or Capricorn rising, what relationships resonate with you? Okay. And again, look around when I say your social circle, and it could be acquaintances as well. And you just may be looking at the beliefs, the philosophies, could even be the politics, and just say, and think about it. Who's on the same page with me? I'm not going to say who's part of my tribe. And do I need to be more tolerant? And things of that nature. If you are born under Aquarius or with Aquarius rising, well, Jupiter is retrograding in your 12th house, the house of solitude, right? The house of secrets, past lives. It's healing, it's psychic, it's creative. So I will say this, it's an excellent time for any type of intuitive work. That retrograde energy from Jupiter, because Jupiter is we talk about growth, right? So it is a great time in terms of knowledge and higher knowledge to certainly reflect on, if you're interested in anything to do with karma and past lives, any type of intuitive abilities, dream work. Just want to say in terms of the knowledge, a great time to look into anything connected to dreams. Yeah, really good. And certainly, as I say, the intuitive arts. Creatively speaking, I do want to say creatively speaking, it is a time also when it I just want to think about how I want to phrase this. Jupiter, we always say, expands what it touches. And while it is retrograde, it's still expanding. Okay. It's not like it stops expanding. It's being more reflective of where it is. It's not quite as strong. Okay. It's not as strong as it's direct, but it doesn't mean it's not like it's inert and it's not working at all. So it's more of a time to look back at what you have done in terms of creativity, in particular if it's connected to dance, to music, just because very much connected to the 12th house. Again, look back at that and how does that resonate with you? It might be a little bit time to bring that back into your life in the future for peace of mind, because the 12th house is subconscious, right? And so we're really not aware of it because 12th house, hey, anxiety. So Jupiter retrograding, okay, in that 12th house, negatively, could it sort of, I hate to say expand or dig up things that are a little bit hidden, like I say, hidden fears, I'm not saying phobias. Yeah, it's possible. So if there are any issues in your life that you're aware of, it is a time, I'm just going to say in terms of the knowledge part, to look into it and to see what you can do to heal it, because there's this healing issue connected to the 12th house as well. And in terms of the solitude and being on your own, Okay, especially, and it's really relevant today, right? Because of, a lot of people are isolated, right? Because of the lockdown. And so it's time to reflect on, how are you on your own? How do you handle isolation? How do you handle solitude? And again, it may be something that you handle well or you don't. Either way, it's time to reflect on it. And if there's an issue with it, you have to look forward to say, okay, when Jupiter goes direct, and not to say you can't start a little bit before then, but certainly when Jupiter goes direct, if this happens again, I don't want to be in the same position. So how can I work on myself during this time to handle it? And whether that could be through some self-help or some therapy or some spiritual work, okay, to dig deep for that, okay? And last, never least, Pisces. So if you are born under Pisces, or you are born with Pisces rising, well, Jupiter is retrograding through your 11th house. Now, that's a very social house. And we say it's a house of your goals, your hopes, your wishes. And it's it's the group relationships. So again, I'm just going to say, looking at the reflective part of it. And the excess and the waste is actually where I'm going to start with this. Now that it's not part of your life, all right, because again, of the lockdown, assuming you're locked down, you're not out, you're not in maybe a lot of these group activities, you may be reflecting on, were you too involved with other people? Okay, always out, always doing things, always busy. On the other hand, here's the thing. Reflect on this. Were you under involved? Maybe now that you're not out in places physically, let's say working, maybe you're more involved, you're networking more online, or you're reaching out to more people that maybe you didn't kind of bother with, quite frankly, before, and realizing that, I do need some more social contacts, even if they're not close and one-on-one, but just more social interaction. Networking, 11th house, third house too, but 11th house, it's our colleagues. So if we're talking about networking, it might be something to reflect on. And again, in the past, how important is it to you? Were you always, never miss a networking opportunity? Or did you, I don't like them, don't like to do it. And at this point, it might be a time where you need to reflect on that and maybe even reconsider it and say, I need to expand in that area, grow in that area. Okay. Goals, the hopes, our dreams, as we say, right? Always what resonates with you. Look at your goals and your hopes. Do they still, when I say that inner truth, what really, is true for you, does it still resonate? And certainly the 11th house, listen, humanitarianism, right? It's humanitarianism. And so as far as reflecting on that, and whether it's looking at the past or looking at what's going on today, what are your beliefs? All right. What are your beliefs? What are your belief systems? The 11th house is a very political house. And it might be a time when you're evaluating, reconsidering, and again, it might be your beliefs, or it might be, I'm reconsidering, I've had these beliefs and maybe I need to become more of an activist. So that might be thinking, because, social justice, right? 11th house, but also connected to Jupiter. So you could at this time during these months be looking at that and saying, I feel that when things change or I have the opportunity, I need to get out there and, just become more active. So that wraps up Jupiter retrograde. And again, I just want to thank you for joining me, invite you to, like I say, check out YouTube. If you like it, let me know, put a like, write a comment, subscribe, share it. That would be great. And so probably we'll have some other podcasts, just don't know how soon. So just wanted to make that clear. So you just know I am still out there. All right. So again, thank you so much for joining me. I am Debra Ann Clement. And until next time, may Jupiter's blessings be your constant companion.
We hope you've enjoyed this presentation. To schedule a consultation, please visit DebraClementAstrologer.com.